I'm Thane Richard, and in 2020, I bought a 42-foot sailboat with the goal of starting a school while sailing around the world. Now, when I say this to people, it usually gets some raised eyebrows, mostly out of curiosity, but I'm sure there is some skepticism too. So if you're raising your eyebrow a little bit with some curiosity and also probably some skepticism, let me give you the elevator pitch on what the Planet School is, who I am, and explain a little bit about why I am making this podcast. So welcome to the first episode of the Planet School podcast. A mini episode. Well, more like a trailer. But a trailer that you really should watch before you go see the full movie. You know what? Let me start over. Welcome to the Planet School podcast, episode 0, the elevator pitch. I have taught and currently teach on semester at sea programs for high school and college students. I have also coached speech and debate and led students across the country from Providence to Seattle on bicycles. I have watched these types of learning environments very often be life-changing. In my experience, when youth are given real responsibility, not only do they rise to the challenge, but they create amazing, high-quality, powerful work. But being given real responsibility can be tough. It should be tough, and there should be risk of failure. And I don't mean getting a bad grade. I mean messing up, actually messing up, learning from that failure, and then getting better the second time. Or the third time, or even the fourth time. You see, when the work is real, like sailing all the way across an ocean, B-level work just doesn't cut it. And we often have to ask students to repeat tasks until they are safely completed. This commitment to excellence breeds authenticity. And with teachers who lead by example, students come out of these trips with an expanded understanding of themselves, of the world, and of what they can accomplish in the world. So, having sailed thousands of miles on sailing school vessels and on my own boat, I have tried to distill the ingredients that make these programs so powerful. And I've asked myself, why can't school be like this all the time? Does this type of learning really require a 137-foot sailboat in order to take place? As an answer, I have decided to start my own school, which I am calling the Planet School. The goal of the Planet School is to take the core elements of the experiential learning programs I have been a part of on large sailboats, which are authenticity of work, subject relevance, sense of ownership, student agency, and ability to fail, and apply them to the full spectrum of subjects, not just nautical science and oceanography. So, here's the quick pitch for what I envision the Planet School will be. Students will spend a few weeks sailing. Since I am experienced at this, I know how to make a sailing program that is impactful and that lays a lot of the groundwork for how the school community works, from how we get chores done to how we communicate with one another. Then we will shift to a land campus, and the challenge to the students will be to build the school itself. In the same way that students learn how to sail and navigate from professional mates, they will learn how to design, build, and govern a community from professional farmers, architects, builders, economists, and artists, just to name a few. Each class will inherit a new, unique set of challenges and pass on whatever they get done to the next class. The first year, the students will arrive to a vacant parcel of land, and their challenges will be things like fresh water, toilets, building shelter, thinking about food production. By year 3, students may be debating whether to shift from being a summer camp or a semester school to being year-round, and whether they should build a second greenhouse or maybe expand the solar panel array. It is called the Planet School because the fundamental challenge to students is to imagine. Imagine they are the first humans to land on a new planet. Knowing everything that we know today, how would they design human civilization from scratch? Before this whole starting a school business, I worked in journalism for 8 years. I had started India's first independent online radio network because news and current events are still banned on FM radio. I founded a magazine in Detroit, ran editorial policy for a satellite startup, and more recently oversaw the India versions of HuffPost, Business Insider, Gizmodo, and several other global publications. In between living in Mumbai and flying thousands of miles to visit the global headquarters of the various brands I was managing, I would go sailing and teach. This podcast is an outgrowth of my journalism-built quest to tell a story, which, as I have thought more about it, was really a quest to educate. But this podcast is also an expression of a core principle of the Planet School, that the building of the school itself should be a learning experience. Therefore, this podcast is for anyone who is interested in what it takes to start a school, particularly a school that is, let's face it, gonna be kind of weird. I will also be talking about the adventure of sailing around the world. You may be an educator. You may be a parent. You may be a podcast enthusiast. Or you may be a student interested in more than what the current system is challenging you with. And I happen to think that there are a lot of you out there. So, here are some of the big questions that I will need to answer over the course of this podcast series if I'm going to be successful. How does someone even start a high school? How do you raise money for a school? Like venture capital? Like investors? Can a school be investable? Is there a way to avoid charging exorbitant tuition as a primary revenue stream? What is the right way to scale this? Opening a 4-year high school overnight sounds daunting, unrealistic even. So should it go from being virtual to being a summer school to being a semester school? How does it grow? What are all the legal considerations? There is both at least liability and accreditation here. How do I find amazing teachers to come work at the school? Teachers are the secret sauce to the learning experience, as we all know. I also believe that teachers should be well paid. You should not have to be a professor at Harvard to make a great salary in education. How do I make that a reality? And finally, how does a 42-foot sailboat fit into all of this? And we will actually begin with that last question. Cue the rain. This story begins during the first few months of the COVID-19 pandemic, when education all over the world changed suddenly to remote learning. My friend and I came up with a plan to try and make remote learning engaging, and that plan had just hit a hiccup. And we will actually pick up with that story in our next episode, episode 1. That concludes our first mini episode / trailer. Join me next time where we kick off the story of the Planet School, which begins with trying to buy a boat to sail around the world. Thank you for listening. I'm Thane Richard, and this was the Planet School podcast, episode 0 / trailer / mini episode.